I'm going to be spending today showing you how to create two color spot swatches in Adobe Illustrator. Now, Adobe Illustrator gives you the power to work with spot colors like Pantone spot colors, for example, which use pre-mixed ink colors, not process color printing, for example, using CMYK colors. So if you are creating a document, for example, a business card for a company that has an official, orange that's their own orange, or maybe you're doing something that's using a limited ink color palette to create some, a two-color flyer, something like that, you might want to learn how to mix ink colors in Adobe Illustrator. Now that takes a few steps. It's a little bit more complicated than doing the same thing in Adobe InDesign because unlike InDesign, Adobe Illustrator unfortunately doesn't let you do what are called mixed ink swatches. So I'm going to first show you our default swatches in Adobe Illustrator. We have a whole bunch of swatches that are, in this case I created a CMYK document and I see a bunch of process color swatches that use different combinations of cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. I actually don't want to use any of these. I'm going to pretend for sake of argument that I'm designing a document that is going to be printed using only two ink colors, and those are not going to be CMYK. So I'm going to go to the flyout menu in my swatches panel, select all unused, which will select everything except black, white, registration, and none. And I'm going to delete all those other swatches so that I'm even going to delete this little swatch group called grays. And what this is going to do is make it less likely I'm actually going to select a CMYK color that I don't want to use. Now, normally what I would have done until last year is use the built-in Pantone color library that would have been available under my color books in any Adobe application. The problem is that as of last year, the Pantone Corporation and the Adobe Corporation kind of had a falling out in their previous arrangement where all the Pantone swatch books used to be available to use in all the Adobe software. And this made sense for both companies because Pantone made their money selling inks and selling swatch books. So it made sense for them that you could design a document that would use their inks without having to pay extra just to cite an ink. But for whatever reason, they dropped that relationship. Now you can only get the official Pantone swatch books through the Illustrator application or through any other CC application by paying a subscription fee. And I don't really think that's appropriate just to cite a color that you're going to already be paying to use their inks. And luckily I'm not the only one that feels this way because there's a designer named Stuart Semple who's got a website called Culture Hustle USA where part of his mission is to free colors from copyright. You can't really copyright a color, you can trademark a color, but what that means legally for us is that if, for example, someone made a spot color library that happens to correspond exactly to the numbers of the inks that Pantone produces, then you can't really stop them. So I already downloaded this free library that he made available that has, again, free spot color library that you can open as a .asc, that's Adobe Swatch Exchange file. And you can use that in any Adobe application like Illustrator or InDesign. So I already downloaded that file. I'm going to go to the Adobe Illustrator application now and I'm going to load that swatch library so that I can cite some spot colors. So I'm going to go to the flyout menu in my swatches panel. I'm going to go to Open Swatch Library and I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom of that one where it says Other Library. And now I'm going to have to find that .asc file, which I happen to know I put under my documents. And here it is, freetone.asc. This is the file that you would download. So if you download it, it's probably in your downloads folder by default. I'll click open. And now it's going to open in its own little window. And you can see if I expand it, they don't say Pantone, they say Simpletone because, again, Stuart Semple is the designer that made this. But all the numbers, if you happen to have a Pantone swatch book, as I do, all the numbers here will correspond to the inks that you can buy from Pantone. I'm going to just grab a few of these. I'm going to make a couple different color combinations using some different, you know, combinations of different swatches. And for my purposes right now, it doesn't matter so much which colors I pick, just as long as I get some that are fairly different from each other, just to kind of experiment with. Now I'm going to go ahead and close this. And I've got, you can see these are spot colors. If I look at the swatches, I can see that the little dot is the giveaway that these are spot colors, which means that each one of these will print as its own ink if I export this to press. So it'll be a file that is designed to use, for example, this yellow ink, this orange ink, this red ink that I would be buying from Pantone or from somebody else that can mix the ink for me. So what I need to do next is I'm going to create an array of little squares that represent what I can do if I take two of these colors. For example, if I take a yellow and a purple from my swatch library here, and I want to see all the different colors that I can make by mixing different percentages of yellow and different percentages of purple. So let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to draw a square at the top left corner of my document. I'm going to change the fill color of this little square to yellow. So close that. And if I look under the appearance panel, I can see, okay, I have no stroke applied and I have a yellow fill applied. Now, again, if you are familiar with mixed ink swatches in InDesign, unfortunately, that's not something we can do in Illustrator. But what I want to do is I want to make this into a shape that has both yellow and purple in the same shape. And the way that I can do that is if I go to my appearance panel and at the top flyout menu of the appearance panel, I can actually add a second fill color to the same object. So if I do add new fill, I can rearrange stacking order and everything to see what's on top of what. Right now I have yellow and I have another fill of yellow. I'm going to change one of these to purple. So right now I have a yellow fill on top of a purple fill. Now the problem here is that, you know, whatever the foreground color is, by default knocks out the color behind it. So I wouldn't see what they would look like printed on top of each other. So the way that I would make these colors additive, where the yellow is printed on top of the purple, is I'll take whatever the foreground color is, and this time I'm going to go to my attributes panel. Now these, if you don't see them, you know, already in your workspace, they're available under the window. Pull down for window, and you could find attributes there. But under attributes, I'm going to check this box that says overprint fill. So now if I look at my appearance panel, I can see, okay, this object that I have is a square that has a purple fill and then yellow printed on top of it. But it still looks just like yellow. And the reason I'm not seeing it as yellow printed on top of purple yet is because I'm not enabling what's called overprint preview. Overprint preview is a way of viewing documents in Adobe applications that simulates the appearance of one ink printed on top of another, basically the color you'd get if I'm not just seeing the foreground color, I'm seeing the foreground color printed on top of the background color. To get overprint preview, I'm going to go to the pull down menu under view and change the view mode to overprint preview. And now I can see it's neither purple nor yellow, it's this burgundy color that I get by mixing these two inks together. So far so good. The problem is I want to not just see what I get when I print these two inks on top of each other. I want to see a whole array of different options when I change the percentages of inks that I get. And I'm going to start off by seeing what happens when I just get 10% yellow and 10% purple. So I'm going to choose this fill color. Then I'm going to go to the fill. The color panel. I'm going to change it to 10%. Then I'll go and I'll select the purple, go back to color, change it to 10%. So this is now a very light colored swatch with a little yellow printed on top of a little purple. I want to see what range I can get. In this case, along the left column, I'm going to add a little yellow at a time. I'm going to start with 10% yellow, 10% purple. Then I'll see, for example, what I get when I get 20% yellow, 10% purple, 30% yellow, 10% purple, and so on. So this first column is going to be all 10% purple, but varying amounts of yellow. And the way that I can create a staggered column that shows the different amounts of yellow is I'm going to duplicate this square. I'm holding down Option Shift, dragging it down to duplicate it. And so the top one is going to be 10% yellow. The bottom one, if I go to my appearance panel, select yellow, I'm going to bring it up to 100% yellow. So this still has a 10% hit of purple, 100% hit of yellow, 10% purple, 10% yellow. And I want to see all the in-between steps. So the way I can do that is if I select two objects in Illustrator, I go to Object, Blend, I'm going to check my blend options. And what I want to do is I'm going to change from smooth color to specified steps. And I'm going to leave this at 8. What that means is this is step 1, this is step 10. It's going to create 8 steps in between. And that's going to give me a total of 10 different squares with varying amount of yellow. I'm going to click OK. So that was just setting the options for blend mode. If I go now to Option, Blend, Object, Blend, Make, there we go. I've got now a whole nice little array of little yellow to a lot of yellow. If I select this, you can see that I've got really it's 2 objects and then it's kind of filling in all the in-between steps for me. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to zoom out a little bit and I'm going to duplicate this entire column, bring it over here somewhere. And now what I want to do is I want to add a little bit of purple at a time. So this is 10% purple. And I want this one to be 100% purple. I want everything in this column to be 100% purple. And that'll give me a nice range. So let me go to color mode. Let me make sure first I'm selected on one of these squares. Okay, selected on the top square. Go to color, change it up to 100% purple. Got to make sure I do the same thing on the bottom one. So now what I've got on the right hand column is this is 10% yellow, 100% purple, up to 100% yellow, 100% purple. So this is 10%, everything on this column on the left is 10% purple. Everything on the column on the right is 100% purple. Each of them have varying amounts of yellow. So what I now need to do is this is 10% purple, 10% yellow. This is 100% purple, 10% yellow. So I want to see adding varying amounts of purple going across. Now to do that, the first thing I have to do, I can do that using blends again, but before I do that, I have to actually break each of these blends into individual squares. So if I select this, I go to Object, Blend, Expand, and do the same thing on the right. Object, Blend, Expand. Now these are individual squares, although they are grouped together. So I'm going to select both of these and do Object, Ungroup. So what that means now is if I select these top 2 squares and do Object, Blend, Make, keyboard shortcut, Command Option B. I'll just use keyboard shortcut for each of these now. So now I'm seeing what happens when I add different amounts of different colors. I'm seeing all the combinations in 10% increments from a little bit of yellow and a little bit of purple, or a little bit of yellow and a lot of purple, or a little purple and a lot of yellow, and everything in between. And I see the whole array of colors that I can get by combining these 2 colors. I'm also going to add, just for kicks, over here on the right, I'll add something that's just 100% yellow, and I'll duplicate this and do 100% of the purple. Maybe I'll make sure, I'm just going to be all nitpicky and make sure everything's nice and locked up. Okay, so what I've got now is I've got a whole array of different appearances. I'll go ahead and select all these and do Object, Blend, Expand one more time, and Object, Ungroup. But any one of these squares is some combination of yellow and purple spot color. So this would print as a 2-color job. This is, and I have not added any more than 2 inks. All of everything that we see on my screen so far could be created using just 2 inks. And now that I have this array of inks and I decide, you know what, I kind of like this burgundy color. Maybe I want to use this burgundy color and some combination of these other tinted colors or something like that to recolor these icons. The problem is I can't save any one of these as a swatch because the color swatches are all single inks. You can't have a mixed ink swatch in Adobe Illustrator. However, you can create what's called a graphic style. Now, graphic styles can be used for things like, for example, I can make something that has 3D effects or has a pattern or has drop shadows or something like that on it. I'm going to get rid of all that. And what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to make a graphic style based on one of these ink mixes. So for example, if I wanted a graphic style that's 100% hit of yellow printed on top of 100% hit of purple, I can take, I'll select this object, and if I click the little plus sign to add a new graphic style, this works very similarly to creating a color swatch, except it's creating a graphic style that has 2 different ink colors. I'm going to add a few different color combos to graphic styles just to see, what it looks like. And then I'm going to go to these icons I've got ready here. I'm just going to try applying, let's say I want the frames of all these icons to be this dark burgundy color. Oops, it looks like something's going on. Why is that not working? You know what? I'm just going to use these 2 left ones. Something's goofy about how this is set. And then I'll select everything that's currently blacked. And I'll make it, I don't know, this light color. Oh, looks like I missed something still. Select same fill color, and I'll make it this light color. Okay, oh, shoot, that's not working either. You know what? I'm just gonna leave this one. Okay, I've got an icon here. Maybe I'm just gonna take this icon and I'm gonna make different parts of the icon different fill colors. I don't know why that's not working. I think I had some unexpectedly complicated shapes here. There we go. Okay, so I've got an icon here that is, colored with combinations of this yellow and purple. And I could even have, for example, maybe I'm exploring some different color palettes, and I want to see what sort of things I can get playing around with these different colors. And maybe have some text or something. So I'll get a sense of what kind of graphics I can create in a flyer using these 2 different ink colors. Now I want to explore different color combinations, not just these 2 color combinations. And I don't want to have to go through all those steps again I made to make this array of colors. Luckily, I'm working on artboards, and one of the things you can do very easily on artboards, you can see I've created an artboard called swatches and an artboard called icons. And if I want to duplicate an artboard, I can just go to the artboard tool, and I can option drag it. I can actually, I'll option drag this one too. And now I've got other artboards, and I want to try another 2 color combos, but I don't want to have to go through all those steps again. If I go back to my swatches panel, I can actually create color groups based on different swatch combinations. So for example, let's say instead of yellow and purple, I want to see what I can do with blue and red. So if I select red, and I'll hold down, actually command click to get red and blue selected. Now I click on this little folder icon for new color group. I'll call this blue, red. So now I've got I've got a group of two different colors defined as a color group, and where that's going to come in very useful for me is now if I select this whole bottom, copy of what I created, where I've created an icon, I've created some placeholder text just to kind of give me an idea of what I get playing around with these two different colors. If I select all this stuff and then I go to my properties panel and click the button that says recolor. Let me close this out of the way. Recolor is a really quick way where you can sort of explore different color combinations. Normally I could just use this panel and see what it looks like. Ooh, what happens if I combine, these other colors instead of these colors that I had applied. But in this case, I want to make sure that I'm sticking with my spot colors. I'm not trying to create some kind of new funky CMYK based process color. So I'm going to click on advanced options, and that brings up this recolor artwork window. And what I can do under advanced options is I can say, you know what, I'm going to take these two different colors and I'm going to apply it to this color group. So the color group that I just defined, blue, red, is right here. So what it's doing right now is it's taking everything I created and it changed everything that was yellow to red and everything that was purple to blue. And if I close that, well, that's what would happen if I created a blue and red version of these color combinations. I can do this now very quickly. I can explore all kinds of different color Oops, let me put that where it belongs. I can create all kinds of different color combinations. So let's do one more and then we'll wrap it up. I'll make another color combination that combines pink and orange, for example. So I'm going to select pink. I'm going to hold down the command key, click or pink and orange, create a new color group. And I'm going to select all this stuff, and I want to see everything I can do just working with the pink and orange. I'm going to click recolor. I'm going to click advanced options. I'm going to choose pink and orange, and OK. So there we go. I'm starting to get a sense of what I can do with different color combinations in Adobe Illustrator, even though Illustrator, to my knowledge, still does not support mixed ink swatches. One more little quick thing I'm going to do, I'm going to save this and I'm going to switch over to Adobe InDesign just to show how you could use InDesign and Illustrator together with swatches. For this new InDesign document I have open, once again, my default swatches include CMYK, which I don't want to use. I'm going to go ahead and I will select unused and delete those swatches out. And I'm going to place some of the art from that Illustrator file I just created, just so you can see what happens with the swatches in Adobe InDesign. I'm going to go to InDesign and place. I'm going to look on my desktop, two color swatch demo. There it is. You can see the preview actually doesn't show the inks overlaid on top of each other. And that comes down to, one more time, we have to change to overprint preview mode to see it correctly. So if I go to view, overprint preview, there we go. I have a whole array of different colors. Now here's something I want you to know. Since I've just placed, I only placed the image from the first artboard in that Illustrator file into InDesign. But in swatches, now I can see, hey, it's imported these two spot colors into my swatches in InDesign. And I'm going to show you something you can do in InDesign that makes this whole task feel so much easier. You're going to wonder why the heck they didn't include this as a basic feature in Illustrator as well. If I have my swatches panel open in InDesign and I go to the flyout menu and say new mixed ink, I could do just one swatch, but I'm going to do a whole group of mixed ink swatches. And I can automatically make swatches in InDesign that show all the combinations I can make with those purple and yellow inks. So if I do mixed ink group, I'm going to say, I want to see what I can do mixing I'm going to set both of these to 10%, repeat 10 times in increments of 10%. What this is going to do is I want to see what happens when I have different amounts of purple and different amounts of yellow mixed together. You can see it can automatically generate 121 different swatches. I'll go ahead and click OK. And you can say, oh, look at this. It's, again, this is if I don't add anything that uses any swatches other than the ones that I've just imported or the ones I've just created. This would still print as a two-color job, but I have this whole array of different swatches available to use in InDesign. So for example, if I create another page and I wanted to make a text box, I will just fill this with placeholder text. Let's say I want the text color to be the darkest I can get from these two different colors, which is this kind of brownish color. And I wanted the fill color for this text box to be like a light yellow or something like that. This is something that I could do in Illustrator, in InDesign very easily using mixed ink swatches, and this would still print as a two-color job. If you ever want to understand how inks separate in InDesign, you can also go to Window, Output, Separations Preview. And this will show you where all the different inks are. If I click any one ink channel, remember when you're looking at color separations in black and white, everything that is black represents 100% hit of whatever ink color that is. Everything that is white represents a 0% hit, and everything that's gray is some percentage. So if I made color separations, for example, maybe if I was designing t-shirts and I was going to screen print something, I would make transparencies, and the transparency themselves would look like these black and white images representing, or I guess a reversal of it, depending on if I'm doing a photo negative or something. But the color separations look like this, where everything that is black represents where a specific ink is. So this is where the purple ink is, and you can see, oh, all the purple ink goes from 10% up to 100% if I look at it this way. And my screen's preview's kind of goofy, but 10% to 100% hit a yellow going that way. So hopefully that was helpful, understanding how to work with limited color palettes using two-color spot art in Adobe Illustrator and Adobe InDesign. Thank you for tuning in.